I put in a little note at the beginning saying that, like, this is an expression of it's the fun that I love about music, and the humor that you can find in music at times, and also obviously the way music can be so poignant and can be a form of expression for your darkest times too.
Hi, Ashley. How are you doing?
Hi, Victoria. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming here. And you are actually our first Irish harpist on
Oh,
Talking
wow.
Harp. So, welcome.
Oh,
And
thank you.
tell us about your music journey. And I know you play multiple instruments. How did the harp came into the picture?
Yeah, so I'm from Ireland. I'm from County Clare, a lovely county on the west coast of Ireland, beside the cliffs of Moher. Maybe people have heard of it, and Bunratty Castle and all those famous landmarks. But I grew up so my mom and dad were both traditional musicians and singers. They actually met at a weekend of traditional singing in Ennistimon in County Clare years ago. So we were always listening to music in the house, and we were playing and learning tunes from an early age. And I suppose we started, myself, I've one brother, and we started learning the tin whistle. And I was going to tin whistle classes. I was about 7, I think, and it was in the Traditional Irish Music Institute. It's called, in Newmarket and Fergus, where I grew up. And I went to my whistle class, and I remember hearing at the time what I didn't know was the harp, but I heard the sound. And it's a very big kind of a house, and it has a lot of corridors and rooms. So my mom was talking to the tin whistle teacher, and I kind of ran down the corridor, and I was like following this sound. I didn't know what it was, and I looked in, and I could see Deirdre O'Brien Vaughan teaching a harp class. And I just said, okay, that's actually what I want to do now, Mom. Let's get rid of the tin whistle. Let's move on to this big thing here. So yeah, since then it's kind of been a genuine love in my life. And I always remember that moment, which is funny. Anytime I'm asked about, why did you start the harp, I remember it so clearly. It's funny, um, the first time you hear it. So that's how I started, and I'm still playing. It's still a big thing in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not the first guest that tells us that they hear the sound of the harp and they were immediately drawn to
Mm.
it. So that's really cool. And being in Ireland, which has a really rich harp heritage, how has that maybe influenced your style of playing or learning? Or do you think that you're very much doing your own kind of music right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because when I was learning the harp, let's say when I was 7, there were I suppose there were a few, and maybe there were more than I'm thinking of, but there were like a few kind of teenage girls, and not many boys, I have to say, in their teens. I looked up to them. And now there's a lot more students learning the harp in Ireland, girls and boys, which is great. But I suppose, there's a lot of harp festivals that I would have gone to in Ireland, and such as the O'Carlin festivals in Keju and Nobber, and um on Green on Term and Feckin Harp Festival as well. And I think as well, I have to say, I competed in the FLAS, in the competition kind of circuit when I was younger. So really, I suppose you're meeting all these harp players all the time, and even though sometimes you're competing against them, you're being inspired, and you're meeting a community that I suppose you're drawn into. It's kind of like hearing the harp for the first time. It's something that you're drawn into, and then when you meet other people who have been drawn into this world, it's kind of a bit of a connection, and yeah. And then obviously, like with the older players, I think I suppose, without even saying, they're the huge inspiration for all of us, and they still are. There's a great organization at the moment in Ireland called Harp Ireland, and they run a Harp Day in Ireland. I think it's traveled abroad now. I think it might be International Harp Day, but it's basically to promote the harp as much as possible. And getting back to your question, I think I've diverged a bit, but yeah, I think you're constantly being inspired by other players, and it's when you get older, I think you try to forget the competitive nature of what you have been kind of, I suppose, practicing for or learning tunes for. And you're actually trying to forget that and maybe re-engage with the music a little bit and re-engage with why you were drawn to the instrument in the first place. So you're obviously being influenced and inspired by other players, but also I have to say, from other music, I've been inspired as well, and other styles of playing of other instruments even, and the concertina, for example, which is my other instrument, is there are kind of nuances, or there's different parts of the music that I can maybe try to incorporate on the harp. And I learned a lot of my music in Tulla in County Clare, and the East Clare music has a lovely kind of a lilt to it, or there's a little bit of a it's a sort of a little bit more laid back. And so I think that has influenced my harp playing, which wouldn't have been, I suppose, a major thing in styles of harping maybe in Ireland. I'm not too sure, that's my own opinion, but I suppose because the harp has only become popular again from, let's say, the 1960s, 1970s, and today in Ireland, harping styles are a little bit, maybe they're only starting to kind of form now. Again, that's just my opinion, but that's how I see maybe other instruments, or how they might influence my playing a little bit.
I really resonated with you about being in a community and forgetting about that competitive nature and just feel inspired by others. I think that is something that I miss personally, being in a place where there's not a very prominent harp culture. And just even through talking to guests like yourself and hearing the different kinds of music that everyone plays has been very good for me as a harp learner as well. So I really appreciate that you share that, yeah, like we can still be in that same space and get inspired by each other and do our music in a way that makes sense for us.
Exactly, and it's great that is doing this. It is gathering a community together to be more inspired and to be more supportive of each other, because even though competitions, they're great, and I have to say, I did them all. All when I was younger, and they do, when you're younger, they're great. They keep you motivated, and it's like exams, they keep you motivated for the next thing. But there comes a time when maybe you realize that, am I doing this for the actual music or the love of the music anymore? And sometimes it becomes it's a bit of an obsession, or it's great when you win, and then when you don't, sometimes, I've noticed it myself, it can really take a toll on your nerves and your reason for actually kind of questioning, do I love this anymore? So that's happened to me before, and I've had to come back and really work on that myself, and say, okay, I've done the competitions now, let's come back and let's enjoy the music. What have you been what have you been surrounded with your whole life? Like, this is more than competition. So yeah, there comes a point where you need to look around you and actually look at these people who you're against. They're not they're not bad people. You're all here for the same reason, and support each other, because it can be very it can be damaging sometimes, so as long as we remember to encourage each other and bring each other up, instead of I suppose concentrating on the competitive nature of what can happen sometimes.
Definitely. And speaking of life and where music can take you, you're now making your very first album.
Yeah.
about the album, and what's the inspiration behind creating this album?
Yeah, so I had been playing music for obviously for all my since I was 7, let's say. I'm 25 now. But I suppose in the last couple of years I was thinking about doing a record. I went to Australia when I was 18 or 19, and I remember them saying, you should really have something to sell when you're over here. And I also just wanted to record to put down music I enjoyed playing. And then I started my master's in music education in the University of Limerick in 2018. And it was a 2-year degree. So I did 1 year. And then in the summer of that year, my dad passed away. He was very ill and he passed away in July of 2019. So, obviously we were a very close family. That was a huge thing in my life. But I kept going, I went back into my master's in September of 2019. And I just realized for the first time I was sitting in a lecture and I just realized that there was nothing going into my head. I couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate. And it was very unusual. I just felt I was completely spaced out from everything that was going on. And I met with my course director and we talked, and we talked about what was the best thing for me at that time. And at that time it was just to take the year out from studies. I hadn't done it before, so I felt there was a little bit of like shame or failure or those kind of feelings. But now I completely realize it was the best thing, and those feelings of failure were completely ridiculous. It was the biggest thing that had happened me in a negative way in my life, and I really needed to look after myself and work on that. So I put that first, and I said I would not put any pressure on myself with studies, and I would work on music. And I love composing, and I said I would go into the studio maybe once a month. And I did over in Milltown Malbay with Martin O'Malley, who is a lovely man and a great professional, experienced engineer. And I went in with him, and I found it was a little bit of therapy, and just to be kind of working on tunes. And I suppose a lot of them are my own compositions, and then a lot of them are tunes I would have learned maybe from my dad and in the traditional music kind of scene. So yeah, so the album is actually dedicated to him. I mean, in the middle of all that, like, COVID happened, which was, other music things I had lined up, but the same as everybody else were all cancelled. So I actually had more time at home to kind of work on the ideas and work on some tunes that I thought that I would put on the album. And obviously with that process, some are lined up and you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that one, and some are scrapped, and then you have other ideas. So it did take a while. I started it in December 2019 and I finished it in May 2021, just gone. So it's now in print, and yeah, so it's nearly here, which is the short of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great way to remember your dad, I think, right? To be able to capture some of that
Yeah,
memory in the form that you can
it
share with
is.
others.
Yeah, and it's the biggest thing that he always wanted for us. He loved playing music, and he never believed in he didn't like to see me or my brother being stressed about things or his studies. He always just said, you have the music, like, you always have the music. That was his thing, and we were very lucky, we played tunes with him in sessions. He actually had his own session in Quinn in County Clare for 30 years, every single Friday night for 30 years. It was some, kind of some statement, but I suppose, in the end of it, there was a tune I composed for him when he was sick, and it was more of like a pick me up to, it's just, we're thinking of you, and you'll be, kind of raising him up a little bit. And he managed to kind of lilt it back to me in the last few days, which was really sweet. So That tune is called Tune for Dad, and I, no fancy title, but yeah, myself and my brother played on the album. He is my brother is a great guitar player, and he's a multi-instrumentalist as well. He sings and plays the pipes, but he plays the guitar on this track. So yeah, it's a nice way of thinking of him, keeping his memory alive as well.
Definitely. And you said the album is in clean right now, and I think it is going to be available right around the time this interview is coming out. And can we find this album on your Bandcamp store? Because I realize you have a Bandcamp store.
I do, yeah, and Bandcamp is great and support the artist. So I am aiming for November. So I have an in-person launch, which is great that in-person gigs are coming back. But I have an in-person launch at the Ennis Trad Festival in Ennis in County Clare, in mid-November. So the album will hopefully be released in November, and it will just have a look out for my Bandcamp store, and yeah, it'll be on social media. I'll be posting about it too.
Awesome. And then we can find out where else we can get your album aside from
Yes,
Bandcamp too then.
yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
Yeah, and speaking of your Bandcamp store, I know you have realized that you have released an EP in 2015. And do
Yeah.
you think the sound of that album is going to be quite different than what you're working on right now?
Yes, absolutely. That's a very interesting question because yeah, that EP was I was going, and like I said earlier, I went to Australia when it was the first time I went somewhere, um and I was going to America then a little while after that for the Milwaukee Irish Fest, and there were other little things happening kind of around that, and I went into the studio in Milltown Malbay again. I like to keep things in County Clare and promote Clare's. People who know me are sick of me talking about County Clare. I'm a very, very proud of where I'm from.
Big
But
fan.
yeah, the so yeah, I went into the same studio actually, with the same engineer in 2015, and just we recorded what I would consider my playing to be very much in the competition way of playing, for Flacul na HÉireann, back in 2015. Definitely with the choice of tunes on it, and my style of playing. I probably didn't experiment with maybe dissonant chords, which I like the sound of now, or um I composed a little bit back then, but I wasn't confident with my compositions, or I never even considered myself confident to say I compose or I'm a composer, which now I think, I'm kind of believing in that a little bit more. um but yeah, definitely the sound is a lot different. On this new album, I'm playing a lot of there's obviously the new sound of the concertina on this too. So there's traditional harp, there's concertina. I have string accompaniment with fiddle, viola, and double bass as well on this album at times on some tracks, and I have guitar accompaniment. And then there are some tracks where I'm actually accompanying myself on harp while I'm playing the concertina. Obviously,
That's
that was
fun.
done, yeah, at a different times. But so the sound is different, and it's a little bit more. I suppose I'm being a little bit more adventurous. I love, and I wrote this in the sleeve notes as well, on the physical album. I worked with a woman called Abby of Little Bird Design, and her design is really beautiful. So I put in a little note at the beginning saying that, like, this is an expression of it's the fun that I love about music, and the humor that you can find in music at times, and also obviously the way music can be so poignant and can be a form of expression for your darkest times too. Like it's the name of the album is Ashtar, which is the Irish word for journey. So it's all a journey through, I suppose, my own grief, and through COVID, and through composing, and my journey to date, basically, to where I am now. I've had a lot of influences, and really this album is, you know, a collection of that sound. So it is very different to the 2015 EP, but I think it's a good thing. I suppose that my playing has developed, and I've sort of become comfortable in my playing and where I'm at the moment. So I think that's the main difference. Yeah.
Yeah, my previous guest, Heather, has said that her colleague Karina has told her the album, once you record it, it's like a frozen in time. That's how who you were at that point, and then when you look back, it's kind of like a journey. So I think it will be very interesting for us, even as audience, to listen to your EP from 2015 and listen to your album and see where you have gone in terms of your
Wow.
music and your arrangements and whatnot. So I think this will be a
Wow.
really nice way to remember your journey too as a harpist.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose it will be interesting. It'll probably be interesting for me to listen back to both of them and think, oh my God, why did I do that? Or yeah, so yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
hope you like it. So, you know, whoever's listening. So
Questions.
I got
And
there.
you got there after
Yeah.
pausing for like a year. And your master is in music education. So, what drawn you into pursuing a master in that field as teaching something that you really enjoy doing?
Yeah. So I suppose I've been teaching part-time. I've been teaching harp part-time mostly since I was maybe I suppose 16 or 17. And like I would have only had maybe a couple of students, and at that time it was, you know, I suppose pocket money as well to keep you going through college or, you know, whatever. But I basically realized that I really loved it. And I also teach concertina, and I suppose from that, you know, I did my undergrad in the University of Limerick, and that was mostly that. So that was Irish music. The full title is Irish music and dance, but you either majored in one or the other. I can't dance at all, so I just say, you know, my degree was Irish music. So after that, I suppose I just felt it was a really natural kind of choice to make. What will I do my master's in? Oh, I like teaching, so I'll do music education. And the degree was mostly focused on teaching music in at secondary school levels. So from teenagers who are, I suppose, 12 year olds until maybe 17 or 18-year-olds. And then they would go to university after that. So I, you know, during the course we had school placements out in secondary school, and I absolutely I loved that as well. You know, it's a completely different it's a completely different setting to teaching privately. But I, you know, it's the whole thing of, and I always think this, no matter how, you know, sometimes it can be a little bit, if you're younger going into a, you know, a class of students, and there's a big class, can be a little bit nerve-wracking maybe when you're starting out. And then what always happens to me is I always think, but you're so, I'm, you know, in my head I think, I'm so passionate about this, like this is the main thing, and I just want to show this to the students in front of me. And if I can inspire, or even just if something, if I can show them something here that they might take home today, that is just even that you can find happiness in listening to this type of music, or um you know, even if they were to see the teacher being so enthusiastic about a subject that they love, maybe that will also kind of influence a student. So um I've had great experiences with teaching in school, and I still do a little bit of I go in for days, you know, subbing. At the moment I'm full-time teaching online now, which is great, teaching harp. I suppose the harp is my biggest love, so I just love teaching harp so much because I love the instrument myself. I love music so much, and I actually really enjoy teaching. I think there's nothing better than when you know, you pass what you have and what you're lucky enough to have been given, or something that you've learnt, and all the years of learning, and I'm very grateful to my parents for passing on the music to us. If you can pass any of that on to people, and when students say, oh, I get it, or oh, that's so nice, or I'm so glad I can do that now, it's the best feeling in the world, for me. And it's incredible that you can help people get to that place too. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I
very nice two-way feedback in some way, I think. And I remember having this conversation with my harp teacher because I credit him a lot on what I can do. And when I can do it, it makes him happy too because he's like, yeah, look, I help someone else to see. So I can see that sort of being a very positive feedback cycle for both parties.
exactly, that's it. And that's the I think that's it's the icing on the cake when obviously if there's something that you're basically helping somebody understand something, and when they have it, it's just great, there's no other way of, or yeah, there probably are longer, more I don't know, flamboyant ways of saying it, but it's a great for both parties. You're right, yeah.
Mhm. And we have some audience who are looking into maybe starting to teach harp at some point in their career. Do you have any tips on getting started? What might be some good things to do to prepare yourself to become a harp teacher?
Yeah, that's a good question. I remember when I had my first class, and I thought, okay, where do I start? Because you've built up your technique and your repertoire and your skill set so much that sometimes it's very difficult to go back to basics and unlearn it all, to think as the beginner. So I think it's, if you pick a very easy melody, right, and look at your right hand, and even just look at your hand. There are things, and I've learned this from teaching some classes. A student might ask you the most basic question, like, oh, so I put my wrist on the soundboard or I don't, and it's something that you've forgotten to say because it's so used to you, and obviously depending on which style of harping you play, the answer will be different. For me, I say yes, because with harping in Ireland, for most of us, we lean on the soundboard, but there's some things like that, or that you might kind of hover over in the first lesson, such as, I remember even last week I was doing a beginner class with somebody for the first time, and it was the whole thing of the thumb it plays this way, and the other fingers actually come in this way, and there was the difference of, so the actual direction you're playing the string is slightly different. So they're the tiny things that you might forget yourself. So what I would say is, don't panic, because there are so many things that are completely new to people who are learning, that you've completely actually forgotten to have as important pieces of information. So don't overcomplicate it and keep it so simple. Your string colors, your hand position, the direction of the fingers, coming into the palm, um, how to just get a sound out of the string is, the basics. It's keep it nice and simple, and yeah, just really. And I think the most important thing is that every single person is so different. Like, I've taught so many beginner classes. Beginner class number one for different people is, every single one is so different, because everybody has a completely different, um I suppose they have a different standard of, as well, what they can take into a lesson, or their music, their previous music experience, or instruments. So it's also different. And just take each student as, every student is unique. Every student is individually different, and that's a great thing, because it's variety, and variety in teaching is so exciting too, and in learning.
For sure. And you also play in a number of bands. And tell us about these bands and what's your experience playing with other musicians? And I think you already talked about the fact that you really enjoy being inspired by others. So how is it for you to stay in the band and stick with the same group of people for
Yeah.
some time? What is that experience like for you?
Yeah. it's a completely different setting to playing individually. Obviously, when you're playing individually, you're in control of everything yourself. Your, you know, the time you get to somewhere, or the uh even your set list for a concert, you might want to change it halfway through and you don't need to tell anybody. So, you know, it's a completely different scenario. I think so I play with two different bands, Harpano, which I've been with them since 2017 or 2018, and Three on the Bund, which is a kind of a recently formed band. And I play mostly concertina in that band and a small bit of harp, but the two are very different. Harpano is with a hand drum or a hand pan from Switzerland. I think it was I think they've only become, or I think they were only made in like 2000 or something
It's
like
a
that. So
very new instrument. We
isn't
have
it?
one
Yeah.
guest who play a harp and hang duo. So she played the harp
Oh,
and
cool.
someone else played the handpan. That was my first time
Oh,
here about the
oh,
instruments.
really?
Yeah, so you play that?
Yeah. I don't play it, but a friend of mine plays it. Yeah.
Ah,
So
awesome.
yeah, and he was studying, actually, he was a Bowron player, Dale McKay, um, you know, our Irish drum, the Bowron, and also a percussionist. So he was playing that instrument, and I remember he came into the academy in Limerick and he started playing this instrument. And again, it was the sound. It was, I just thought, oh, that's, you know, it's a really bell-like sound, and it's somewhere up here the frequency is. And I just thought, oh, that's really cool. And I had a gig coming up, and I asked him if he would do one set with me, and I didn't know what to expect, because you know, it's not a traditional Irish instrument, and I don't even think the scale is you know, any of the scales that we have. I think there are a couple of notes that are missing as far as I know. So I didn't know what to expect. But he came up with these beautiful melodies, and I just accompanied him. I said, okay, we're in C sharp minor, I think it was in. So I just kind of played around and see where he was going. And it just turned out to be a really lovely sound. And we formed a band then with Conor Broderick, who is a great keyboard and piano player from Ireland as well. So we are, fingers crossed, doing an album soon. We're actually on, there's two really lovely videos that we did a couple of years ago, by Colm O'Neill, who's a great videographer, and they're on YouTube. So it's Harpano is the name of the band. So that's completely different music then. It's kind of like yoga or meditation music. You know, it's really easy listening and
It
calming.
is.
I would say it's
I'm
calming.
pretty obsessed with the whole harp and hang combo here. I don't know if
Yeah.
you agree.
I do. And you know, I'm praising the band, but I'm not, even because I, you know, I'm in it, but like if I wasn't in it, I would I would still love the sound. It's so different, and it's just so calming. You know, it's really
Mhm.
grounding, and it's a very earthy sound. Yeah, and then the other band I play with, I play mostly concertinas. So, you know, County Clare, if anybody knows, is known for its jigs and its reels and its dance tunes. And you know, my dad was from Cork. He played the accordion, and he was, you know, down in Cork and Kerry, they're big into their polkas and slides. So it's all dance music, it's all fast music, and I love that too. And I definitely bring that onto the harp as well. But in Three on the Bund, yeah, it's mostly fast music. So we
Mhm.
actually have an album recorded, and that will be coming out soon as well. No date confirmed, but you know, it's there too. So
Looks like
yeah.
you have some exciting projects in the works, and we're looking forward to hearing them. I have started a habit of collecting albums from all my guests. It's kind of my way of remembering
Oh,
all the people I've talked to. So I'm gonna have to hit you up later and purchase your
oh,
albums.
cool. Yeah, yeah. I'll definitely let you know when they're there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So now that you have finished your degree and you're working on your first album, where do you see yourself going in the next couple years? What would you like to be focusing on in the next little bit?
Yeah, that's the million dollar question.
Yeah.
um To be honest, I'm really happy with how things are at the moment. When I was in my master's program, like I was finishing all of that online for the last, before May, for the, 6 months before that, it was all online because of COVID, which was fine. It suited me fine because it was a quiet time and there was a lot of work. And at that time, I was a little bit worried because I had all these projects that I really wanted to do with music and creating and composing. And that side of me was a bit, trying to trying to come out, or trying to, I really wanted to see these things through. And I was afraid that by, doing my studies, or um, by me, if I was to get a job that was a secondary school job, which would be full time too, that I wouldn't be able to do the two. And as it happened, this year has worked out perfectly so far, because I am doing my harp teaching, mostly every for in Ireland, all in the evenings, a mixture between in person and online. Some days then I'm also teaching online for international students, which is great. I love that. Um, and I also have the time to focus um, on my projects that are, that kind of excite me. I suppose. Where do I see myself in a few years? I really don't know, because I really love all of this, and I am very lucky, and I'm very grateful for everything that I do have, because I always say, I could do my secondary school music teaching, I suppose, but I can't see a time where I want to stop, doing the creative side of things. So I'm going to leave that question open. I don't
That's
know.
totally fine. I'm gonna check
Yeah.
in a couple of years, maybe actually in a year time, to see where you're at,
Oh,
and
no
ask you about your
pressure.
project. No pressure at all. No, it's something that I've been wanting to do, because I got this great wonderful opportunity to talk to a lot of harpists, and some of them are more established, but I definitely have a couple that are just starting in their career. And it's very exciting to see that they're in a place that they're very happy with right now. But I think it will be interesting to see where everyone may be potentially diverging, or maybe just developing further in what you're currently doing from now, and see how that's working out. So I would love to talk to my guests again in the future,
That's,
and
yeah.
I
Was
will
that
I will give you a shout.
it's really exciting though, even to hear that, because it just shows maybe how the harp is thriving at the moment. If people are making a living, and if people are thriving with the harp, then the harp is really alive. It's super, and that's what we want, I think.
Exactly. And
You
there's
know,
nothing wrong with combining teaching and doing your own project. Like my teacher has does that for many years, and it's keep him employed and happy, and he takes on projects that he loves. And I think that is really the best way to have a job, is to do something you love.
it is. And like both, yeah, as you say, you don't need to choose. Obviously, if it's a job where you need to go to school from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 or 4 o'clock, um, and you also want to create, it could be maybe a little bit tiring, but other, I think if you plan it out okay, and you really are passionate about it all, I think there definitely is a way.
Yeah,
Um,
for
you
sure.
know, and get
Yeah,
loads of sleep.
yeah, yeah. We definitely prioritize our time for the things that we love. So I'm so happy that you're doing things that you love, and I hope that you will continue on this trajectory and do things that you enjoy doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. Where can we find you on social media? What platforms are you on? How can we stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on, you can find me on my website, actually, Aisling Lyons Music. They're all the same, I think, actually. So my website, Instagram, I use that quite a lot, and Facebook also as well. Yeah, they're the three main ones. I think I'm on other things, but I don't really use them that much. So yeah, they're the three main ones.
Awesome. We'll keep an eye on that to watch out for the release of your album. And
Thank you.
good luck. And thank you very much for chatting with me and sharing your journey with our audience. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks so much, Victoria, and yeah, and hello to everybody on your channel. And I hope you enjoy and might listen to some parts of my music somewhere, wherever you might listen to your music. Yeah.
We do. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Victoria. Bye.
Bye.